lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you all rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Kritzman. We'd like to welcome you to the July 22nd study session of the Livonia City Council. This meeting sets the agenda for the 1,878th regular meeting, which will be a voting meeting that will take place on Monday, August the 12th. We have no council absences this evening. And is there any special announcements or groups anyone would like to introduce this evening?
President Toy?
Yes, please, go right ahead.
I didn't do those in the last meeting because we had a lot of things to cover, but I'd like to wish a very happy 16th birthday to our youngest son, Patrick Henry McIntyre Culleton. He will not be with us this week for his birthday because he left today to spend a week with his grandmother on Mackinac Island, and then he's off to camp for 2 weeks to be an assistant program counselor. But
Wow.
he's certainly made the last 16 years very interesting and entertaining for us. So happy birthday, Patrick. Thank you.
Happy birthday. That's great. All righty. And of course, we want to give prayers out to Janelle and wish that family all the prayers and speedy recovery to her and her family. God bless her. We also have new data on item 4, council. And now we'll move over to audience communication. Anyone that would like to speak to the city council tonight on any item that's not on the yellow agenda, if you would approach the podium to my left or right, we would be happy to hear your comments. I see no one coming up, so we'll go into our study, council. This is a study meeting. There will be no votes taken this evening. The council members will, however, offer either one resolution or a combination of resolutions for each item. The resolutions offered may include an approving, a denying, or a referring resolution to a committee or a city department for their report and recommendation. A resolution of no further action may also be offered. There are some items that will be simply received and filed for the information of the city council. Please note that all the items on tonight's agenda will move on to the regular meeting of Monday, August the 12th, where they will be officially voted on. If you'd like to participate tonight in any of the items on the agenda, if you would please approach a podium to my left or right and give us your name and address, we'd appreciate it when your item comes up. With that, council, we'll move into new business. Item 1, request to waive the city's noise ordinance. Is Richard McLean here? Good evening, sir. On Old Rosedale Homeowners Association to show family-friendly movies beginning at dusk until the end of the movie on Friday, September 13th in Kleinert Park.
Yeah, hi, I'm Zach Curd. I'm the vice president of Old Rosedale. I'm here in Dick's stead. And that's, you got the gist of it. We've done it the last few years and it's been a real big success. This year we're going to show The Greatest Showman. And it's usually a really good time for the kids.
Great. And you get a lot of people out to
Oh,
that
yeah.
too, don't
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Madam
Good job.
Chair?
Yes, go right ahead.
Since this is my neck of the woods, I'd be happy to offer an approving resolution. I know that the folks in Rosedale Gardens really enjoy this, so thank you.
Yes, and I have 3 council members. I'll take Vice President Jolly, then then Councilman Kritzman, and then Councilman Barr.
I was just gonna say, it's a great movie that you've chosen,
Excellent.
but the kids are gonna be singing those songs constantly for weeks, and it's gonna drive you crazy. But other than that, nothing. Good luck.
Thank you.
All righty, Councilman Kritzman.
Oh, I'm all set, Madam Chair. Just wanted to congratulate them on this program moving forward. I remember when they first brought this to us about 6-7 years ago, and I remember us vetting it then and being all worried about it causing a disruption in the neighborhood. And I think in the end, this is one of those things everyone looks forward to. So,
Absolutely.
good
great.
job.
Councilman Barr, you all set? Okay.
Madam President.
Yes, please, go ahead, Councilman.
Sir, are you showing Friday the 13th for the older kids after the first one?
You know, they made that joke at the Parks and Rec board meeting.
Hey, when you tee it up, you have to do it.
That's fair.
Well, great. Well, you do have an approving resolution, I believe. It was asked for consent. if I'm not mistaken, which means you don't have to come back, and it's approving you can pretty well go with your advertising and
Perfect.
everything else, sir.
Great.
Okay, much success to you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Item 2, if there's no one from the audience on item 1 then, any further? No? Item 2 is a request for an approval to enter into an agreement between SMART and the City of Livonia. This is brought to us from the Department of Community Resources for municipal credit contract for period July 1 of this year to June 30th of 2020, with all credits to be used for the Livonia Community Transit Program. Director McCann.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to ask you to approve our yearly contract for the municipal credits. This is from the Michigan government, but it's administered through SMART.
And if we're smart, we'll do it, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes, go right ahead.
this is typical housekeeping, so I'll be happy to offer an approving resolution on the consent agenda if there's no objection.
Thank you, Councilman Meekin. Any others? Anyone from the audience? We have an approving on the consent.
Thank you.
Director McCann, thank you very much. Okay, item 3 then is a request approval to enter into agreement with Simple Recycling. This is brought to us from the Department of Public Works for a 4-year agreement with an option to extend for an additional 4 years to provide services for the collection of soft recyclables. Are you up on this one, Mr.? Oh, pardon me, Mr. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. Jacob Rochelo, Superintendent of Public Service in the DPW. So this item was actually initially brought to us through the department by the Greenleaf Commission under its mission to try to encourage environmental practices here in the city. This was presented at a meeting a few months back, and the idea of starting a curbside soft recyclables collection program offered by the company Simple Recycling. And there's a representative here from Simple Recycling, Sonny Wilkins, if you guys have any specific questions or about the company or the program that I don't answer as I'm going through my notes here. So soft recyclables in this program would include items such as clothing, shoes, hats, blankets, curtains, pillows, table linens, sleeping bags, and other small home goods. Simple Recycling provides a residential curbside pickup service, also in conjunction on the schedule conforming with our current solid waste and recycling pickup schedule. Through this program, residents would have the option to place these items into the provided collection bags and place the bags at the curbside on their regular scheduled collection day. In addition to curbside collection, Simple Recycling will also provide a drop-off box at our recycling drop-off location on Glendale as another option to place recyclables there. This program is offered to the city and its residents totally free. Residents will, of course, still have the option, if they don't want to use this service, more than welcome still to obviously donate to whatever charitable organization that they currently do or would continue to like to do in the future. With that, happy to take any questions, and it's our recommendation moving forward with this program to proceed in authorizing the mayor and the clerk to enter into this 4-year agreement with Simple Recycling with an option to extend for an additional 4 years.
Thank you very much. Questions, Councilman Barr?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rushlow. This is an intriguing idea. In full transparency and to my discredit, this was actually an idea that was presented to me a couple of years ago. Got a phone call and actually had a series of phone calls about it, and I'll just freely admit it fell off my radar, and I'm actually happy to see it come up for our consideration because I was intrigued about it then and just never followed up on it. So thank you, Greenleaf Commission, for doing that. I have a few questions. Are you aware, and if not, maybe the gentleman that's here from Simple Recycling is, but are you aware of other local communities that are doing this?
Yes, yeah, there certainly are in Southeast Michigan, and when Sonny had presented, Sonny's the gentleman's name from Simple Recycling, when he had presented to the Greenleaf Commission and myself at a meeting a few months back, he had a slide that showed there were 11 communities in Southeast Michigan that they work with in conjunction with GFL, and then there's a number of other communities that they work with, and I forget the total number offhand, that have other trash haulers for their collection services as well. So they're definitely, they have a presence in Southeast Michigan.
So do we know what some of the, Plymouth, Farmington Hills, Northville, some of those communities, are any of them doing it that you know of?
Yeah, I know just off the couple that you had named, Plymouth and Canton both are.
Okay.
Sonny can probably run through a whole list of them if there's any more that you'd like to see from him.
Okay, and then would this be, and I apologize if you already covered this, but would this be something that's available every week with trash collection, or is it an every other week, or how does that work? Guess we'll hear from Sonny.
Well, Council, thank you. My name is Sonny Wilkins. I'm Vice President of Simple Recycling. So we mimic the current curbside recycling schedule with all of our partnerships. So, and that's, I believe, 5 days a week here, weekly. That's what we'll be doing now. So we follow that existing schedule.
So as a resident, my trash is picked up on Friday morning. Any given Friday, I could put this out there and know that it was gonna be picked up?
That's correct.
Okay, and then do you provide the bags to residents?
Yes,
These
we do.
special-
Yeah,
Okay.
along with a postcard that comes, the city provides a list, and then we will mail all the 2 bags along with a postcard to every eligible household of the program.
Okay, question for Jacob. I noticed in the materials that provided to us, there was a statistic in here that these types of trash accounts for 15% of a local waste stream. Is there any chance, I know we can't talk, we don't know specifics, but is there any chance that this would have a positive impact on our future negotiations with trash contractors? I don't know if we know of any experience with local communities with that, or is it small enough that it's negligible?
The 15% number is something that comes from a statistic that was put up by the EPA on what is collected through recyclables and what's sent to a landfill. In regards to the idea of it having some positive benefit to us in the future on contract negotiations with solid waste contracts, I'm sure it's something that we can mention to them. I don't know if it's gonna have a direct impact on our total tonnages that we're disposing of every year, but I think that would probably be the most direct benefit to us, would just be a reduction in amount that we're sending to landfills.
Okay, and then since Sonny's up there, do you have a list of communities that nearby? I'd just be curious to know who's on that list.
Well, yes. So the other ones are the ones that are highlighted here. Canton, Garden City, Harrison, Lincoln Park, Milford Township, South Lyon, Southfield, Taylor, Walled Lake, White Lake, Wolverine Lake, and then we have some other communities within Michigan also.
And this is something that, you don't have to tell me by community how long, but this isn't a flash in the pan thing for them. I mean, we have communities on there that have been doing this for a significant period of time? Or?
Yes. So the program and the curbside pickup of the soft recyclables has been happening in about 5 years overall. I can tell you that at that time we started off with 2 communities were based out of Cleveland or Solon, Ohio, in the Cleveland market. We started off with 2. At this time now, I'm in 12 markets, 8 states, and I have over 200 municipal contracts in growth.
Okay, and then it's understandable if you don't have this information, but let's take Canton, for example. Do you know what volume Canton's doing to this? That's probably a comparable community to us of that list that you had.
Yeah, I don't know offhand. I mean, I could look it up, but I could tell you that typically just across the board for simple recycling across those 200 communities, we'll pick up roughly about 1.5 pounds per household per month across the whole year.
Okay. Just the last question I have is, when there's a lot of neat opportunity that I see with this, and I see little downside for us as a city. The only mild concern I might have is just what impact this has on charitable giving. I would think it would have a downward impact on that. On one hand, it's another outlet for people with this, which I think is a good thing. Less waste is a good thing. But I'd be a little bit concerned as to whether there's a huge drop in charitable donations on this. So do you have any idea from other communities what they've seen with that?
Well, a couple of things to remember. The first thing is to remember is that even with all the charitable organizations and different ways where people could actually bring these items and donate them, according to the EPA, only 15% of the materials ending up in those places combined. The other 85 is either being landfilled or incinerated. The second thing that you should remember too is that if you're a supporter of a local organization, whatever that organization may be, typically those people are doing it because they want to benefit that organization. They'll typically continue that normal behavior even with simple recycling is involved.
I can see that, and just to be clear, this is not a charitable donation. There's no receipt that comes with this. This is just self-dividing your trash to be more environmentally responsible, right?
Yeah, that's correct, that's correct.
All
Often,
right. There may be other questions. I like the idea, frankly. You know, the idea of putting clothing out to be picked up isn't different from what people do for various charitable drives, some of which I've been a part of. I see little downside in this for the city. There's no cost to us. We have other communities around that have experience doing this. I'd offer an approving. I'm sure there's other comments, but I'd offer an approving for this. Thanks.
thank you. One more thing I'd like to add, Council, is that not only is the program free and at no cost, we're actually going to reimburse the city $20 per ton for everything that we actually collect.
Which is why I asked the volume question. I'm going to do some calculations over here.
I see.
Great. Councilman Kritzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, Sonny addressed some of the thoughts that I had. I think a lot of times what you end up with is people wanting the materials from their house to not be wasted and not get thrown out. But what ends up happening is they end up going into other material streams, whether that be like Salvation Army or something to that effect, and they kind of contaminate that process where they have a threshold from a quality standpoint of things that they will accept and things that they won't accept. I think this will actually alleviate some of the stress on that. I had the same thought about our own recycling program. As much as we try to educate people on what is acceptable materials to throw out and to throw into the recycling bins and what is not acceptable materials, I see all the time things that shouldn't be in there. I can't tell you how many times my wife, for example, I don't have to go far, and please don't tell her I said this, is throwing things in there that shouldn't be in there.
You're on TV.
Yeah, she's not watching.
You're on TV?
She's got better things to do.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen her throw out like a pair of shoes or something to that effect that are broken. And while they may be a good candidate for recycling, they're not a good candidate for the donation side. So I think this will, at least the way I'm imagining it, have a positive effect on cleaning up the contamination of that recycling material stream as well. Thank you.
Certainly. Council Vice President, you didn't want the floor, did you, or did you?
I'll just add, just very quickly, kudos to the Greenleaf Commission. This is like a concrete development to come out of your existence, and the administration as well for entertaining it. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman McIntyre.
Thank you. I think it's a great idea. I've been, what?
Nothing,
Right.
just have a.
Anyway, I think it's a great idea. I've been digging deep into recycling for a few years now, and certainly textile recycling is a big deal, and a lot of it does end up in landfill. And a lot of what the Salvation Army gets and other charitable ends up not being usable, and they dump it out to jobbers, right, for rags. I do know, I've talked to some of the other communities who've used this. There are two concerns I have. I think they're minimal compared to the value of this, but one is it does bring trash pickers, and it brings people who will open up the bags and go through the bags, and then occasionally you'll end up with, instead of a nice neat bag, you'll end up with a mess of things at the curb. The other is the sloppiness with which people engage in recycling. Mr. Kritzman mentioned it, I think others did as well. And, I'm concerned that the same way that we educate on how the recycling bins, what should be in them, how they should be filled, we hear a lot of complaints because a lot of the complaints from recycling and trash pickup are because the recycling bins are not used properly, right? There's stuff put in that shouldn't be, that sometimes ends up outside the bins. They're not filled properly. Papers are put on windy days. My concern is, and some of the other communities have had this experience, the bags aren't tied up, right? And you end up with a mess of wet clothes out on the curb on recycling day. And I certainly laud the Greenleaf and the administration and the business model that Simple Recycling does, but I'd like to ask if it would be possible for us to try a shorter period, like maybe 2 years. And I know Mr. Barr's offered a approving resolution, but I'd like to see how this goes. I think it's a great idea. I'm very willing to support it, but I'd prefer a shorter initial term just to see their, unintended consequences sometimes, but I think this is overall great.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman White.
I'm just curious, I have a question about the other small home goods. In trying to get rid of things that have accumulated in my basement. I found out a few years ago that charities like the Salvation Army don't take small kids' stuffed animals, fabric stuffed animals. Do you take that or no? You do?
Yes, we do, yeah. Most of the 95% of what we receive is clothing and shoes at the curb, so, yeah, but we will take that.
You will take that. Okay, thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, please.
I'm now completely sold. Anybody with kids knows that the most difficult thing to get rid of is those big bags of old stuffed animals.
I will say that somebody, I think a trash picker probably had a field day at my house the day I put out a box of Beanie Babies.
Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, real quick, where do you take this stuff after you collect it from all these different municipalities?
Well, the process and what happens in the secondhand textile world is pretty much the same wherever you bring the items. So what happens is it'll, for instance, if you bring it to Goodwill, they're going to sort of sort through it and decide what will go on to the retail floors, and the rest will go on to folks that will actually sort through it and grade based on quality and best use and then send it somewhere internationally. Well, it's sort of the same that what happens with simple recycling. So we have a number of independent thrift store chain partnerships across the country. For us, it's important that we utilize our downstream network to liquidate the material as quickly as possible. That's why we're able to keep it at no cost. So that's what we do. And based on the quality of the material, the type of material, and the best use, depends on what route that actually goes. But we don't determine that. We allow them to basically decide where it's going to go.
Are any of those outlets around our areas at all?
Most of them will be in either Chicago or Houston. I don't really get too much into who those partners are because that's sort of our competitive advantage, is being able to liquidate it as quickly as possible.
And what do you do to educate our public as to what to put out at the curb, how clean it should be? Like others have mentioned, recycling is a great thing, but I just heard this morning on TV, you can recycle pizza boxes as long as there's no grease in them.
Right.
Or crumbs, and good luck with that. But anyhow, just wondered, sir, what is gonna be your educational piece to this, if you will?
Well, one of the things with the program being at no cost is we ask our municipal partners to utilize their sort of social media platforms and the communication channels that they have to communicate with the residents how best to utilize the program, because they're going to hear that message mostly from you rather than us. So we'll do is we'll obviously we have certain social media things that we do here that we do also. We have the postcard, but I'll be relying on my contact in Public Works to communicate that. Now, I do have certain templates that I give to our partners that sort of have a lot of that already laid out, so you don't have to spend too much time in that. You can just sort of modify it. But I'll work together with Public Works on that to try to communicate as best we can.
Okay, and in the picture, it's a van, and it says simply, I'm looking at, if you can see this little thing here. Is that what picks up the recycling in bags of the soft goods in a van? It's not a big truck that has a lift on it and all this kind of stuff, then, correct?
Yeah, so this is we've been changing our fleet over to this. It's basically a Ford Transit type of van. However, in certain markets, we also pick up with a box van. So depending on the route, and one of the things we didn't talk about is that we partner with a lot of nonprofit organizations because there's just so much material that they have that doesn't suit the demographic that they help. So we actually buy material from them also. So some of our routes are built around that. So you may see one day here, just depending on the volume, a box truck instead of one of these, but it would still be a small box truck.
So it's identifiable, you have a sign on it and everything?
Oh, absolutely,
then?
yeah.
Sure, okay.
Not only will the truck be labeled, but then, our guys should also have a fluorescent vest on it. It says simple recycling and all that should be very easily recognized.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you. I'm gonna go back to Vice President Jolly, he has some comment.
Thank you, Madam President. Something you said at the end there kind of caught my attention. there's a difference between the word recycling and reusing
Right.
in their meanings.
Yes.
So when I hear your name and we're talking about recycling, I'm of the mindset that the materials will be, to some degree shredded, destroyed, and turned into other products. With your comments just a few minutes ago, my understanding is that's not necessarily what might be happening here. You're going to be kind of transporting them downstream for use elsewhere. Is that correct?
Well, so reuse is always higher on the chain than recycling. It's always better to reuse in the current form. So one of the other ways that we're able to keep the program free, and I don't want to keep harping on that, but when you reuse domestically, the material has a higher value than if it was actually broken down into a different material. So we're going to send it through a process to try to reuse it first here domestically. Then it would be, the next step down would be to reuse it internationally, but still reuse it in its current form. And then for the worst material that just can't be reused, it'll at that point be recycled and torn into, made into something else. At that point there, that individual piece of material has a much lower value. So, I want to send it through the process of getting the higher return on
Yeah,
it.
and I appreciate that, and I think that's a good answer. Like I said earlier, I think it's a great idea, and I think we could have a lot of use for it. But I do think there's a lot of wisdom in what Councilmember McIntyre said in terms of doing a 2 years as opposed to a 4 years to see how it works out. So I would support that as well as a trial period. 2 years, I think, is enough to get it off the ground and see if it works. And if it works great, we'll be happy to do it again, I think.
Was there a motion on the floor at this point?
Scott?
I had offered and approving. I don't have a problem with offering and approving for 3 years. That's fine.
3 or 2?
2 is what
Oh, Jim offered
2
2.
members are asking for. It's up to you.
I don't have a problem with that either. So
Okay.
that's fine.
So we have a 2-year at that point.
Madam Chair, I have
Yes,
a
please,
question
go
for
ahead.
the maker of the motion. Do you want to add an option to extend for an additional 2 years then with that? Okay.
I'd be fine with that. I think whether we add that as an option on this or not, we'd have the opportunity to do that, right? But sure. I mean, I like the idea of this. I think there's probably, if some of my colleagues feel more comfortable with shortening the time frame, I don't think that hurts us moving forward with this. So, sure, 2 years with an option to extend.
Can it go on the consent if we've changed the terms
Yeah,
of
I
what the
say
administrator?
accept it,
Okay.
that's fine.
I don't know, we're done with questions in the audience and all that, yeah.
Well, I'm asking if, if the administration can do that, because they had brought us a 4-year.
Oh,
We can address that here at the podium too. So the 4-year term is what we had went through in the process of looking at the agreement and what was going to work. Sunny can explain on their process with Simple Recycling, how they operate. They need that 4-year term to recoup their costs on setting up the program as well as starting the whole collection process and coming into our city and into our market to recuperate their costs. That's why it was presented as a 4-year initial term.
Well, with that in mind, I'm sorry, Madam President.
please, go ahead.
With that in mind, I'll go back to my original resolution of the 4 years. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's also kind of clean the way it'll align with I believe, the end of our refuse contract as well. So we could just talk about all those things at once in 4 years from now. So I'll go back to my original resolution of 4 years, and I'll offer it for consent unless there's objection.
I'd like to place it on the regular, please.
Okay, now we got it on the regular. Go ahead.
We've all spoken more about this than anything else here for a long period of time. But I think these are important questions too. I mean, the things that Councilmember McIntyre brought up could potentially be problems. Is there anything in the contract that says that if this becomes an absolute mess and residents are outraged because there's clothes here and there all over the roads, do we have any kind of out in the contract? Can we, or when we have GFL issues, we have a person from GFL who we call to handle those things. Will there be a direct line of communication to ensure that this is running smoothly and it's not just some, disconnected entity at this point? And listen, sir, this is not a reflection on you or your answers. They've been great. I like the idea of it. But I think, are a body up here that tends to hear from residents if there's something that goes wrong, so it's good to know these things up front.
No, I understand that. Well, I would like to remind council that I've never had one cancellation from any municipality across 9 states and 200 of them where someone is canceled due to lack of performance. I am the direct contact for my municipalities. Of course, I have some people that work for me, but every one of them has my phone number, can contact me at any time if there's an issue. We will perform. And when there are issues there, I'll work my hardest to make sure that they're addressed. And you know, we've provided references to the folks that will speak to that.
All right, well, I'll take you for your word, thank you.
Is there something we could put as a clause in 2 years to do a review?
Madam Chair.
I mean, we do have a contract, I get that, for 4 years if this goes through, but perhaps a 2-year window so that it comes back to council, because it might be a new council by then, et cetera. And my other question, if I may, just real quick, the history. Could you tell me how long you've been in business and how long you've worked for the company?
So I've been with the company for almost 5 years.
Okay.
Started off as a rep when we were actually growing the company, and again, now we're at 200. I'm, the vice president. As far as the company itself is concerned, Simple Recycling is a little bit more than 5 years, but the family that owns it, we're a family-run business, has been in the clothing and discard industry for about 60 years, 3rd generation.
Okay.
They've been picking up for charities for almost 60 years now.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councilman Kritzman, then we'll go back to, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out that paragraph 20 of the agreement calls for a termination and breach in this. If there is a breach of the contract, there's a 30-day opportunity to cure the breach, and if it doesn't, then we can terminate for cause.
Okay.
So I believe there are protections for the city
There
and
is.
for the company, yes.
Okay, great. Councilman Kritzman, thank you for waiting.
That's actually what I was going to say. And additionally, there are monthly reports that'll be furnished to the city.
Good.
So I think we're covered from the standard of care from a performance standpoint. And there is a process laid out in the contract and in place for termination and breach.
Okie dokie, so we don't have to worry about sewing buttons on clothes anymore or repairing rips or things like that. Cool. Okay, we have an approving on the regular. Madam Clerk, thank you, Sonny, so much.
Thank you very
for
much,
answering all
Council. I
those
appreciate your time.
questions.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
DPW and everyone else involved in the process here.
Thank you.
Anyone from the audience wishing to address us? Hearing and seeing no one, then, we'll move on to item 4, which is brought to us from the Planning Commission. Mr. Toromino, go right ahead.
Thank you. This is a request to expand and renovate the Salvation Army store located on Plymouth Road, just west of Farmington Road.
Must be good
This
business.
property is a little over 3 acres in size. As everyone knows, Salvation Army has been at this location for many years, but they do not occupy the entire building. They now own the site, the property and building, and would like to expand into the remaining portion of the building. So they're gonna go from about 23,700 square feet in the space that they're currently in to the full building, which is a little over 30,000 square feet. And in doing that, they're gonna completely renovate both the interior as well as the exterior of the store and the site around it. This is the site plan. What you'll notice here is plenty of additional landscaping on the site. They are limited, given the way the building is situated on the property and the parking arrangement and drive aisles, but they will be changing the circulation along the front of the store. They'll be moving the front entrance from the southeast corner of the building to the middle of the front of the store, and in doing that, they will be adding a new facade treatment. They'll be installing a canopy on the public drop-off donation area in the northeast corner of the building. They'll be adding PRDA streetscape elements. In fact, the new data that I believe you said you received is the letter from the PRDA recommending approval of this, with one stipulation relative to the irrigation system and some of the landscaping along the frontage. The building itself will look like this when it's completed. This is the new entryway on the front center of the building. You can see the new metal canopy overhang, the brick that will flank the main entrance or the tower. This is looking, the top portion shows you what the building would look like, really from the south as well as the east elevation with the donation drop-off area and the addition of that canopy. The parking lot will be improved. The parking, the site actually operates with a deficiency of 30 spaces, that parking spaces. That is a pre-existing condition. The situation, in my opinion, will not worsen. Still, question remains as to whether or not they'll have to seek a variance for that deficiency. Site lighting will be limited to a height of 20 feet. The signage was not reviewed in any detail, but the approving resolution does refer that to the Zoning Board of Appeals to the extent that any variances are needed for signage. And with that, Madam President, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Mr. Termina, does that take in the old Italian store as well? At the end?
Chimento's was the space to the west, and that is the space that they will be occupying. Yes,
Perfect.
that's correct.
Thank you so much. Okay, council, your pleasure, your direction, your questions? Yes, go right ahead. Councilwoman McIntyre.
The traffic sergeant notes that there are no, handicapped accessible spaces in the plan.
The issue of the barrier fee spaces is addressed on the plan.
Okay, so,
Yes.
so that has been addressed.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Go right ahead, Council Vice President Jelly.
With everything we just talked about, I'll just say that I'll still be making my bi-monthly deliveries to the Salvation Army and making sure that we support you, especially with this, these new improvements that you've planned. They look great. And I think, I mean, we can't understate enough how much value you add to our local community and the, you know, the much larger community as well. So thank you very much. And I think it looks great, and I'll still be there with all my kids' stuff.
Did the petitioner want to come on up?
But do they take stuffed animals?
We do take stuffed animals.
I know.
I'll drop all my wife's off later on. She has boxes from her childhood still. I don't know why.
Ow. I'm glad wives are watching the show tonight.
My name's Jim Cummings with Newman Smith. I'm project manager, project architect. I do have some samples if you guys wanted to look at any samples of the materials going on in the building.
Sure.
Pass it around.
Yeah, you pass it over there, yeah.
This is the new brick that's gonna go on the building.
You gotta go back to the mic, sir.
Yeah, you could just describe it there.
Yeah, so this is the new brick that's gonna go on that pier and fascia part. And so that will be matched. We're gonna be painting the existing brick on the building. We're not taking it off and putting new brick on. The existing brick is to remain. So that would then be painted a color to match the new brick here. Yeah. And then the color red, so Salvation Army has a branding prototype that they're implementing. So all of these colors and the schemes that we're looking at is to implement that branding. So this red is matching up to what their branding is all about. The existing other sides, the sides and the back is all made of CMU, so that CMU will be painted this color here to mimic some of the other colors on the building. This is just a sample of the paneling. So all that red that you see on the front side, the existing canopy is gonna stay, and what we're gonna do is just put this new panel, this is the profile, not the color. Again, the color would be that red, but this will be the new panel that will go up and around that existing canopy. Then underneath the existing canopy, we're gonna be putting some direct applied drive-it system, so this is the color and texture of that type of material.
What is that?
Underneath the existing canopy, yeah.
Is this a floor?
Ceiling tile.
Oh, ceiling.
Ceiling
Oh, okay.
underneath the existing canopy.
That's what you used to throw pencils up into as a child.
That's right.
It's underneath the canopy stuff.
Thank you. It's, yes. I'm not an architect, by the way.
Madam President?
Yes, go right ahead.
I'll offer an approving on this for consent if there's no objection.
Okay, Councilman Barr is offering approving on consent. All right, I'm sorry, but thank you for sharing your materials with us. We appreciate it so much.
So I just,
Yes, go
real
right
quick, I know you just took it off the screen there. It says Family Center in the center of the site plan. Does it actually, is it branded Salvation Army anywhere? Did I miss that?
There'll be a logo, you can go back to that. There'll be a
Oh,
little
okay, I'm
Salvation
sorry,
Army
just the
logo
picture you
on
were
there.
showing at the time. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Did you want to say something?
No, I can give my name. It's Jacqueline Idzior, and I'm with the Salvation Army.
What part of the Salvation Army are you with? Downtown or?
Yes, I'm actually an assistant administrator for the Adult Rehabilitation Center,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we run all the thrift stores.
Well, I just want to thank you because you're one of the few that does housing for human trafficking victims.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much for all the Salvation Army does for that. I work in that sphere of things, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, anyone else?
Madam President?
Yes.
I know I offered an approving, but I just thought of one thing. Through the chair to Mark, are we gonna have issues with signage here with the Salvation Army logo there plus the,
We did not evaluate that. More than likely, a variance is going to be required, at least if, for two wall signs to be on the front of the building, that will require a variance.
I guess we'll let that process work itself out, so, all right, thanks.
So we have approving on consent by Councilman Barr. Is there any others? Hearing and seeing none. Anyone from the audience? Hearing and seeing no one from the audience, that'll be heard. You don't necessarily have to come back. You're on consent. So have an evening out on Scott Barr. So we're good. Okay. Thank you very much for coming in. All right, item 5 is also a site plan, well, this is a site plan petition from our Planning Commission, petition 2019060809, submitted by SC Health to construct a new 4-story medical/health services facility located on the east side of Haggerty Road between 6 Mile and 7 Mile Road in the northwest quarter of Section 7. Mr. Toromino.
Thank you. This involves development of one of the last remaining vacant parcels located along the I-275, I-96 Expressway. This property is about 8.3 acres in size. It lies at the northeast corner of the Schoolcraft Campus College. The site is in the process of being rezoned from PL, public land, to PO, high-rise professional office with a maximum of 4 stories. First reading was given on the rezoning on April 22nd. Second reading and roll call are on hold pending a review of the site plan. So the building that is proposed, and which you've seen some conceptual plans prior to this, this building is towards the east side of the site for better exposure and visibility along the highway. The main entrance to the building would be on the west side. Parking, as you can see, would be available on the west portions of the north as well as the south sides of the building. Primary access would come from the ring road that was built to facilitate access around the east side of the campus. And as you can see here too, the name of that road will become St. Joe's Parkway. The building will be constructed in 2 phases. So if you look closely here, you'll see the line that runs through the center of the building. The portion on the right side is phase 1, and that would be 4 stories in overall area or height. It would contain about 92,000 square feet. And then the second phase on the left-hand side would only be 1 story, and that would be roughly 34,700 square feet. So when complete, the structure would contain a gross floor area of about 126,000 square feet. Phase 1 includes pediatrics, advanced imaging, and urgent care, which would all be on the first floor. OBGYN and family internal medicine would be on the second floor. Surgical and specialty timeshare on the third floor, and then physical therapy and radiology on the 4th floor, as well as various common areas located on all 4 floors. Phase 2, on the other hand, will be devoted primarily to surgical center, would include a pharmacy, a lab, and other support services. A number of restrictions in the PO district regulations pertaining to maximum ground coverage, setbacks, landscaping, all of these items are being met. That includes the required parking for the facility, with the additional parking provided around the site, as well as the expansion of existing parking on the south side of St. Joe's Parkway. all of the parking would be complied with. Most of the site services or building services would be located on the east side. This would include the trash enclosures, as well as MRI mobile unit, the generators, all the ground-mounted mechanical equipment, which would be screened using 7-foot high brick walls. Stormwater is not a significant issue on this site, since the campus already provides detention located within a pond just to the south of this site. Landscaping exceeds the minimum required under the ordinance. They're showing 19% of the site. And then looking at the building itself, and I will queue up a flyover of the building, but these are some static renderings that shows you predominantly this building would contain brick, insulated metal panels, curtain wall glazing, and then composite siding. The architect is here, and she will describe in greater detail the building materials, and while they make that presentation, I'll get the flyover ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council, while Mr. Termin is preparing, then, hi. Were you the woman we were supposed to talk to?
Would you rather me not come up?
No, please.
Good evening, council. I'm John Wright with Schoolcraft College. I'm the executive director of facilities, and I'm kind of standing in place for Glenn Cerny, who's the VP CFO, but he had a previous meeting. He's part of the community colleges have a self-insurance group, and he's a board member on there, and the meeting was already scheduled, so he couldn't be here, so he apologizes. With me here are other folks who will be able to help answer questions. So the lady he is speaking about is Holly Osterhout. She's with Lindout and Associates. Also here is Sarah Gilbert. She's Senior Vice President of Operations at St. Mary Mercy. Jason Harris is Vice President of Planning and Operations with IHA. And then Julian Wargo, he is the President, owner, and civil engineer of Zemet Wozniak. So with that, whatever we can help answer or do.
Are you taking down the balloon?
Pardon?
Is the balloon gonna be removed?
We hope not. No, we hope it doesn't deflate, no.
What about the,
Go right ahead, yeah.
what about the bumper sticker on the side of it? That's the biggest point of concern.
Yeah, that one too.
Not so much
Yeah.
Go ahead. We're just giving you a hard time.
I know, that's okay.
We do get a lot of complaints on that, no offense. You know, a little landscaping might help or whatever. I don't mean to be rude, but honestly, we do get a lot of concerns about that, because it's a lovely piece of property. And did you have any plans for that at all?
As far as?
As far as maybe some landscaping or
Changing it.
or changing a little bit?
Well, nothing right off, no, we don't. I mean, part of the issue with around that is there's a lot of snow that comes off of it in the wintertime, and that has to be cleared from the sides. So there's a 10-foot asphalt strip that runs around that. There is the pond to the north side, and so that over time will be developed with some trees and things like that. And then to the south side is all parking, and then the outdoor field.
Madam President,
Okay, go right ahead, Councilman Megan.
through the chair to Mark, will we have site plan approval of signage for this package?
This does not include any signage on the building at this point.
Since I didn't see any on the building at this point.
The resolution addresses that by stating, I believe that only conforming signage is approved with this petition. Any additional would have to go before the zoning board of appeals. So there's no callback at this point in the resolution that would bring signage back to either this body or planning commission. So that would have to be an amendment that you'd have to make.
Well, I'm adding that to the resolution, that it will be a callback item, because we will be discussing any signage that goes on this building in great detail.
Thank you. Councilman Jolly.
So how will this facility be branded specifically? Because you mentioned St. Mary's and IHA. How will it be branded?
I would,
And I guess I asked that specifically for, not to beat a dead issue here, but will the branding of this building affect at all the signage on the soccer dome? And if that is the case, is there an opportunity to do a nicer sign or a classier sign, something that looks more appropriate? Because you literally do have an entire campus full of beautiful buildings. And I think the signage on the soccer dome, which faces the expressway, is really in poor taste. It looks cheap, it looks dirty, there's gotta be a better way to do it. And I'm hoping, possibly if you're rebranding that in conjunction with this building, you really do think about that. And I understand you're the messenger here, but as the director of facilities on the campus, you're probably the person who can get things done. So, I mean, we've mentioned this to all the people we have from Schoolcraft. We, just for a point of history here, our law department has taken cases all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court and won that validate Livonia's ban on billboards. And no sooner did that happen, did this branding on the side of the soccer dome happen. And we just feel like, we want to be good partners with you, and we have had a great relationship with you. But this is one point that we really wish could improve. So anyways, back to the question at hand, how will this facility be branded?
So we'll be co-branded as both IHA and St. Joe's. So both brands would be on the center.
Okay, thank you.
President?
Yeah, Councilman Meekin.
Does this affect the other urgent care that's in the Jeffers building?
Yes, so IHA is currently operating that. We have a primary care clinic there as well. When this building opens, that would move to the new location.
Okay, and this property, is it being sold then? Or lease, a permanent lease? Because the only reason the big sign was there was because they had the urgent care, which was part of St. Joe's, on the campus. If this is not part of the campus, then the big sign becomes a non-conforming sign.
You're referring to
dome
where the new
sign.
site's being developed? Is that being ground leased or is that being sold? Is that what your question was? So
Is there a ground lease on the property that we're talking about today?
Yes.
Okay. So it's also taxable at that point, isn't it? So then, through the chair to the law department, does the big sign become a non-conforming sign that we can actually do something about?
Well, it's something that I would certainly like to look into and take a look at. I don't, I will talk to Mr. Fisher, who is the expert on that, because he's taken those cases to the Supreme Court. And quite frankly, that's something we would like to look at if it is a non-conforming use, and we could do something about that sign.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead. Are you done? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, go right ahead, Vice President.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone off topic here a little bit, but I can't, obviously, but I mean, I can't stress to you enough, like, this is one of the things we hear about consistently from residents and people who drive past. And it is a sore subject, and we bring it up every opportunity we have, had a chance to, and we will continue to do so until we can kind of work together in regards to this. So, I don't think we have an approving yet for the facility tonight, do we? I'll offer an approving resolution. I think it's a valuable investment, and we welcome it. But we'd like you to work with us a little bit in regards to the other issue.
Any others? No?
Is that a consent?
That'll be,
On the regular.
that's for the regular,
It's
yeah.
regular, yeah. So you do need to come back and maybe, get with each other, see what we can do. Give us some answers if you could for us, please. That'll help us out and you out in the long run. Not trying to be mean or distasteful, so please don't walk away and leave that way.
I don't think you have been, but I'll certainly express the
Yes.
concern
Yes, sir.
that I'm sure they've heard, but I will express it, yes.
Yeah, really appreciate it, because you do such wonderful things out there. You really do, yeah.
They have the video as well to show.
Do we,
Oh, we have a video?
Notice they kept the bone off of that. They didn't put the dome on this.
Yeah, they didn't.
It's amazing how that works.
No.
It's a beautiful building.
There's no soundtrack?
Where's the dome?
Can't hurt. There is one issue, I think the petitioner would like to discuss the the issue of site lighting.
Oh, there it is.
This is looking at the building from the north. In the foreground is the 7 Mile Crossing building, and out circling around, looking at the west side of the building. So this is where the main entrance to the facility would be located from the west. You can see phase 1 on the left, which is the 1-story part of the building, 4-story phase 1. South side, swinging around and taking a look at the building from the south side now.
Madam President.
Sure, just right after Councilman
Oh,
Kritzman and then Councilman Barr, that would be great. Go ahead, Councilman Kritzman.
I didn't want
Yeah,
to
interrupt.
talk over the video, but I guess it works out
It's
just
almost
fine.
not
I guess
like-
it's unfortunate that what's getting lost this evening is that this is a great investment in the community and in the campus and in the area, and I'd like to congratulate the design team on what appears to be a very well-designed project. You know, they've made some nice contributions to that area with the Masco building. I know the same design team was working on that. It will be a nice added element to the area. So it's certainly, I don't want anyone to get lost that this building is not welcomed. It's certainly something that we are looking forward to and we welcome in the community. But as was stated by some of the colleagues sitting up here, there are adjacent elements that have been a point of contention for quite a while. So thank you for listening to that, and I hope that something can be done to resolve that.
Thank you, Councilman Kritzman. Councilman Barr.
Just, Mr. Tamina mentioned that there was another issue that we need to talk about. I want to make sure we had a chance to talk about that.
And it is the height of the light poles. The planning commission limited to the height to 20 feet, which is our normal standard height. And this petitioner is requesting that they be allowed to increase the height to 30 feet to be consistent with the other light poles that are throughout the campus.
When you started talking about that, the first question I was going to ask was, what are the other light poles throughout the campus?
I
So-
believe the majority of them are.
The rest of them are, yeah, and they always have been. Even the original ones that were rented from DTE have been 30-foot all the way through. Our new lighting is LED and 30-foot. There's not a light spillover issue.
Yeah, I agree. If it's consistent with the campus, you don't have homes nearby, I don't have an issue with that. With it being consistent with the campus, I think it actually makes
Sure,
sense. So.
Sure. Sir, did you say this is a land lease as well on this parcel, as well as the big dome or?
As well as, I mean, they're two separate pieces. They're-
Correct.
Right.
So are they both land lease or is one, I guess I'm asking about both at this point. Could you
Well-
tell me which one isn't land lease then? I mean, I know the Duke project, when I was out there as a trustee, we land leased that for 99 years at that point.
Right.
And that was
And
back,
I'm a little hesitant to answer because it's more of a Glenn Cerny question, is really, it's a, the Duke property was a little bit different. That was leased to a developer, the property was. This building here is actually will be owned by Schoolcraft College, and then the space leased to IHA and St. Joe's, yeah.
okay, the
So-
building we're currently talking about, you're
Yes,
talking, right?
yes.
Okay, and then the dome is, help me understand that one, as far as the property. Or,
The dome is it a land lease? I suppose there's a land lease with it. We have one tenant primarily that leases that, again, through the 503C of the college, is how they lease it,
okay,
so.
thank you so much, appreciate it. Councilman Kritzman.
Through the chair to the petitioners, IHA, what percentage of the building will IHA be occupying?
So we'll be the entire four-story medical office building.
So a significant portion of it.
That's right.
Is IHA a for-profit company?
No, we're a not-for-profit. We are owned by the same parent company as St. Joe's and St. Mary's, Trinity Health.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. Thank you for helping us understand further your piece of property and what you're trying to do here. Thank you. Anyone else from the council? Anyone from the audience? Hearing and seeing no one, we have an approving, and that's all I heard. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Well, thank you all very much, too.
Yes,
We
sir.
appreciate your time and the comments, where they are taken to heart. I can assure you that. We do want to thank Mark and Todd, too. They've been a big help to try to work with them, making sure that we're putting everything in correctly, so.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, council, we're going back to audience communication. I don't see a lot back there. Mr. Davis is down and back over there, and Mr. Mayor, thank you for all you do. And if anybody doesn't have any birthdays or anniversaries, we're adjourned. Sorry.